I do want to move us to talk about the upcoming games because this will be a 3-hour podcast if we don't do that forcibly. Only 2 games this coming week for the Knicks. They play back in the Garden, coming off the five road games in a row. Heat at Knicks on Friday. It's an in-season tournament game. Suns at Knicks on Sunday. So, they get their breather. They don't play again for another 4 days. So what are your thoughts here with the Heat game coming up?
Yeah, I expect them to be locked in and ready to go. I expect them to take this game very personally. I expect them to care about this game more than the Heat care about it. To be honest, I don't think the Heat really care about the Knicks. If you ask Jimmy Butler, Eric Spoelstra, I think that, right or not, I think the Heat believe that when the time comes, they'll be able to beat them. So I'm not saying that the Heat are going to tank this game. I just think that the Knicks objectively have more motivation. This is the team that knocked them out of the playoffs. That matters to them. And yeah, they have the huge rest advantage. I think they're going to get some good practices in on Wednesday and Thursday. I expect them to be prepared. No Tyler Hero. Honestly, I expect them to win this game pretty handily. And I don't mean that to undersell the Heat. As I was inferring earlier, I am not, I'm never doubting that team again after last postseason. That's just not going to happen. I'm never going to doubt them again in the playoffs. I'm never going to doubt Spoelstra. And one thing we should talk about with the Heat, Bam Adebayo has been incredible this season. Defensively, he's just a really, really good defender. He can. They mix up coverages against the Knicks. Sometimes he drops and protects the rim. Sometimes he just switches onto Jalen Brunson. He is a nightmare, and he's gotten better offensively this year, which every season people seem to count him out like, oh, he's just a role player on offense. That's all he'll ever be. But he keeps improving as a passer, keeps improving his efficiency inside the arc. To me, that's the most important matchup because that's the reason the Knicks didn't beat the Heat in round 2 is the Heat were the team that said, no, actually, Jalen Brunson can get whatever he wants. As long as Mitchell Robinson isn't impacting these games, we're going to win. That's how they beat the Knicks in the playoffs. And if Adebayo is able to negate Mitchell Robinson's impact again, it could be a closer game. It could be a bad night for the Knicks.
Yeah, I think all that is well said. I do disagree with you as far as this game being much more important to the Knicks than to Miami. And kind of Miami not caring about the Knicks. I feel like they do care about the Knicks. I feel like they care about the Knicks insofar as they want them to continue to be a laughing stock, and they feel like they can take it upon themselves to make that be the case, especially someone like Jimmy Butler. And the other aspect of this, and we don't know how much this matters to the players. So that's one thing. But I think if the Knicks lose this game against Miami, they're all but eliminated from contention in the in-season tournament. The Knicks are 1-1 right now, third in their group under Miami, who is 2-0. The Bucks are 2-0 at the top of the group. And if the Knicks go 1-3 in the group, they're not going to win the group, and they're probably not going to be the wild card team moving forward from the Eastern Conference in the in-season tournament. So, maybe that doesn't mean anything to the players and to the teams. I think it might, and I think Miami would like to be the team to kind of eliminate New York again. I do think that would bring some joy to them and their fans. So I kind of feel like the motivation to win this game is probably going to be high on both ends with regard to kind of all of that contextual stuff going on. As far as like the two teams and how they stack up, I think for sure what you mentioned about the matchup with Bam is going to be really important. Bam is particularly like annoying to me in terms of his style, his moving screens, his weird effectiveness from the mid range and no ability to shoot threes, like, you know, his switchability and versatility on defense, like it's just not like the kind of player that I like watching. Even I know it might seem blasphemous to a lot of people who like basketball. Bam's not like my cup of tea, but is a super effective player and amazingly impactful on defense. I think that the Miami doesn't have a great offense, and I don't think they have a ton of firepower. I think that they are kind of floating right now. The last time I looked, I think they're like 24th or 25th in offense, and like in the bottom 10 in effective field goal percentage, which is, those numbers are very similar to what they were last year. So I think that this is kind of who this team is. It's just not a very effective offensive team. And they, you know, they don't offensive rebound well or anything like that. They're not getting like a ton of possessions. I just feel like this team relies on getting to the free throw line and playing really solid defense. And to me, I think they should be able to be exploited by the Knicks. I think the Knicks could really punish their offense and make it difficult for them to score and score enough to beat this team. Because not only is Miami, not only does Miami not shoot well from the field, they also actually don't stop teams from shooting well from the field. The way that they play defense is by forcing turnovers, by not fouling, and they get to the free throw line on offense. They kind of do it in a weird way, the same way the Knicks do it in a weird way, by getting a bunch of extra chances. And it's a little gimmicky to me, to be honest. So I feel like the Knicks should be able to beat Miami coming off this huge rest. It's funny. The last thing I want to say about this real quick is that it's funny because I feel like I do think the playing a lot of games and a few nights matters a lot. Like, and the data does show that affects, you know, teams' performance like very much consistently across the board. But I think people will also argue that having 4 days off will create some kind of rust, and then the Knicks not play well and be blamed on that, which I don't know that is actually supported by the data, but I can imagine that excuse also coming into play. But I do think the rest is going to help them, and I think they should be favored. And again, it would be concerning to me if they lost this game against Miami. I believe this is a game that they should win. This is against a good team, not a great team, and they've obviously beat up on the bad teams, and I just need to see them beat a good team when they should. They did that with Atlanta. It was a really hard fought game, but I would need to see them do it against Miami to feel like really good for where they are at this stage.
Yeah. I think the most important player in the game is Julius Randle. And again, I think what made me realize that is last postseason, because the Heat love throwing lineups out there with Butler and Bam as the 4 and the 5. That's how they mitigate Butler's lack of 3-point shooting, is they play him at the power forward. He's the lead ball handler a lot, and they, run him, Bam, screen and rolls, lots of handoffs, and they surround him with shooting. That is their favorite lineup to run. Bam Adebayo isn't a candidate to guard Jalen Brunson. And Jalen Brunson, while he's definitely improved this season, still isn't someone that defenses fear a ton as a passer. So the Heat are going to probably stick Jimmy Butler on when they're trying to be their best. They're going to stick Jimmy Butler on Jalen Brunson. And the Knicks and Julius Randle need to force Bam Adebayo need to force the Heat to put Bam Adebayo on him. He didn't do that last playoffs. That's why he was able to mitigate Mitchell Robinson's impact. But if Julius Randle if it's not Butler and it's not Bam, think about how insane it is that Randle had the playoff series he had against Miami last season when you account for who was guarding him. It was like they never used Bam on him ever. So it was wings, and it was undersized wings that Randle should be able to he should be able to have his way with, and he
Cody
should be able
Martin,
to force
or Caleb Martin, Max Strus even at times guarding Julius. Yeah, totally.
Haywood Highsmith,
who actually is playing like 25 minutes per game for them, by the way.
Yeah,
so
he's been good this season.
He's going to be the matchup for Randle, is what I believe. So,
right, Randle needs to win that matchup, and then all of a sudden it's Bam Adebayo's turn, and what does that do? They have to put a smaller guy on Mitchell Robinson. That doesn't work. That's when Mitchell Robinson becomes the greatest offensive rebounder of all time. But Jalen Brunson can't force that. He cannot. We saw it last postseason. I said, 5 minutes ago. Jalen Brunson was scoring 40 points, playing 48 minutes a game, and Spoelstra was just like, yeah, that's fine. That's cool. We're not going to switch anything we're doing. Keep doing it, Jalen. You can do whatever you want. Julius Randle can adjust the defense. He can force Spoelstra to say, oh shit, Julius Randle is getting all of his shooters involved. He's getting to the rim whenever he wants. He's getting, he is forcing Bam Adebayo to help, which is creating more offensive rebounds. He can force a schematic change from the Heat. So I think anytime the Knicks play the Heat, it comes down to Julius Randle, and will be, again, paying close attention to what he does on Friday.
Well, hopefully that's a good thing. Hopefully it's a good thing if it does come down to Julius Randle. He's more days and weeks away from his ankle surgery and further along his recovery, especially again having 4 days off to kind of rest and recover as well. If we're not going to see it from Randle now, I don't know when we would expect it. So we'll definitely keep an eye on that matchup. As far as the following game, the Knicks play the Suns on Sunday, 2 days following the Miami game. This is the one that's interesting to me. This is the one that's interesting. The Suns have been up and down. They've been up and down, but at the same time, we know that this is a contender. At least I feel like this. You might disagree with me, which I would love to hear your perspective on it. They've been up and down, kind of a middling record, kind of a middling, net rating. The offense has been good, not great. The defense has been not very good, not terrible. At the same time, if they're going to have Durant out there, they're going to have Devin Booker out there. I think that the Knicks are going to have their handful, and if they beat this team, this will kind of be the win that I'm looking for against a team that I think is better than just like a good team. And I think they can do it because Phoenix is not a great defensive rebounding team, and they foul a lot. So I think I'm looking for someone like quickly to kind of like feast in terms of getting to the line, RJ to feast in terms of getting to the line. And then, obviously, like you mentioned, alluded to a little earlier, this is a Showtime game for Julius Randle, a Sunday game against the Phoenix Suns, against Kevin Durant. I think that, again, he has that rest. I just think that this is a time for the Knicks to be able to show up. I think it's a pretty good matchup for them. I think that Phoenix doesn't have a ton aside from Booker and Durant. Obviously, Beal is not back yet. So to me, this just feels like a game that they should win against a team that is in a higher category, a higher echelon, a higher tier than the teams that they've been beating so far. And I just think it's like set up well for them to win. So I'm really looking for this game to be important for them. So I'm curious what you think about the game.
Yeah, just to zoom out for a second and look at the macro from the Knicks perspective, the 2 games they play after that are against Detroit and Charlotte at home on Tuesday and Thursday.
Yeah.
I think that the floor for these next 4 games should be 3-1. I don't see any scenario where they are, where they're 11-7 after the game against Detroit next Thursday, where I'm like, as a fan, I'm like, oh, that's terrible. No, I would be, that's fine. That'll be fine. That's a fine split. I do think they're less likely to beat Phoenix than Miami. I think Phoenix is better than Miami right now, just as a regular season team. I think Kevin Durant is amazing. That's what I want to talk about, more than anything, which I know some people listening to this don't really care about that, but I mean, it's just some of these guys, man, some of these older players who just keep doing it. It just doesn't make any sense. I mean, Kevin Durant is 35 years old, and he's once again having, I don't know, one of the best starts to his career, one of the best starts to a season in his entire career. He's so good at everything. That game he played against the Jazz the other night was unbelievable. He's just carrying. I mean, if you're out there and you're the type to go rewatch games or segments of games, Go rewatch overtime of that game.
Yeah, he was
It was it,
unstoppable.
it
Yeah.
was remarkable. They ran the same action every single time. They just put him and Knicks fans, if some of you are Knicks fans listening to this, it'll look familiar because it's what the Knicks tried to do with Julius Randle. The Kevin Durant got the ball, on the wing, 20 feet from the basket, back to the basket, and the Jazz were like, "Yeah, we're not going to let him score," and they sent a double at him every time, and I think he created 11 straight points that were just specifically because of Durant dissecting this defense.
I got to jump in. I know you're giving an ode to Durant, which I totally respect. I mean, this is why I don't like the I live with Durant just erase it, like eviscerating you from the mid range. Like I'm not double teaming Durant, giving him an open, pass to the corner so that it can send everybody in rotation and just like create. It's just too. It creates easy offense, and a guy like Durant that's like 7 feet tall is going to easily make those passes, and has seen every kind of trap or coverage you want to throw at him. I just hate putting two on the. Let Durant destroy you then. But anyway, I was watching that game and rooting for Utah, so that's why I feel a little annoyed about it.
Yeah. I 100% agree with you. I've always been I've never been a fan of the idea that points somehow have more value or more harm because it's the star that's scoring them. I mean, but then you see the bias that normal human beings have. I mean, I don't know if you saw, but the reaction to LeBron passing to Cam in the corner against the Heat a week or two ago was one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen in my entire life. You would think that these NBA players who have spent their whole lives doing these things just like turn into clay in these moments, and there were serious people out there arguing that LeBron should force a triple teamed mid-range shot over setting up an NBA player with a wide open corner three. And it's like, I want to pull out a whiteboard for these people and just be like, let's just put some numbers together. Like, come on, let's just make one up. What do you think LeBron is going to do against a triple team with Bam Adebayo standing right next to him? Like, is he more than 20%? What does LeBron need to be to make it a better shot than Cam Reddish, who I know at that point wasn't the most reliable shooter, but he's an NBA player who shoots threes. What is the worst he could be at shooting a wide open 3-pointer? What is the absolute worst? 35%? There's no way LeBron's getting a 35% look triple teamed by a Heat defense that's trying to take away his shot. Like, the fact that he was able to make that pass was unbelievable. And all people could talk about was like, oh, Jordan would take the shot. It's just the most annoying thing. It's just, and I know I'm not trying to turn this into a LeBron thing. It's an everybody thing. It goes back to the Durant thing. They somehow feel like, oh, well, you live with the wide open Grayson Allen three. Why? Why do you live with the wide open? That's insane to me. I would call me nuts, but I'm living with the contested Kevin Durant too. And I know Absolutely. He's one of the greatest scorers of all time, but if he wants to make a number of those over and over again, great. Let his teammates get cold, and that's fine by me. He can 2-point me to oblivion.
Absolutely. And okay, if you're doubling him the way that you're kind of switching up your timing of your doubles, you're switching up who's doubling, where the double is coming from, the double coming from, the weak side, and setting them into rotation that way. Like if you're switching things up, then it's okay. They were just, Utah was just straight up like, yo, we're doubling you. We're coming, we're going to double you and quote unquote, get the ball out of your hands. Meaning we're going to tell you who to pass to make your offense flow extremely well. Like speaking of offensive lubricant, that double was absolutely a 10 out of 10 on the lube scale. So I would argue that you're half to over half right. I do think that they were very blatant with the fact that they were doubling. I do think they mixed up coverages a bit in terms of where the doubles came from, which shooter they were doubling off of, etc., trying not to be predictable there. But Durant saw the doubles coming from a mile away, and it just turned him into a hockey assister because the balls, you force the scramble, and the NBA players these days know who they want to shoot. So the ball is going to end up in Eric Gordon's hands. It's just going. It's Nurkic is not going to end up with 3. It's going to be Eric Gordon or Grayson Allen. So I agree with you about how blatant it was. I want to give Will Hardy a little bit of credit. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NBA, and I think that he was at least trying to mix up where they were coming from. They just
Durant's too tall and he's too good, and the doubles weren't very good.
That's fair. That's fair. I was very in my feelings watching this game, and which obviously takes you out of your rational mind. So, but regardless, bringing the double every single time was extremely frustrating, regardless of where it was coming from, because Durant was going to see it coming and make the right pass, and he did, and that cost them the game, in my opinion.
Were you rooting for the Jazz for gambling reasons or for Lowry Markkinen reasons or other?
Well, actually, it's better for me if for my Lowry marketing agenda if the Jazz lose more games, because that might make them sell him at the deadline. So it wasn't really for marketing reasons. I just like the Jazz. Like, I like watching them play. I do like Will Hardy as well. I think they do some cool stuff with, like, moderate to mediocre talent that they have on the team. So I just like the Jazz, and I don't like the Suns very much. So it's just that's kind of why I was rooting for them.
Cool.
Although the Suns have Jordan Goodwin, who is a really good defensive player, and maybe the guy that that determines the Knicks and Suns game, because I think he's going to spend a lot of time guarding Emmanuel quickly. I think he's going to make things hard for him. So Jordan Goodwin.
Is he actually a good defender? Because I looked up Shake Milton's defensive numbers and they're actually fine. So you're 2 for 2 so far, but are you doing a bit right now, or do I actually have to look up if Jordan Goodwin's a good defender?
Jordan Goodwin is 26. I'm not sure, but I think he was undrafted. But as far as whether he's a good defender or not, that's for you to decide. But I think he's a good defender, and I have watched some Jordan Goodwin minutes on Washington, and I think he's been solid this year defensively. He's been awful offensively. I think let me look it up real quick. No, you know what? Yeah, okay. He's shooting 35% from three, also 22% from the mid-range, and 37% at the rim, for a whopping true shooting of 45.3%. But defense, Jordan Goodwin, solid defensive player.
All right. The more you learn, this is why you tune into these marathon podcasts that are going to get shorter each week, so that you can learn about Jordan Goodwin's defensive value.